Exhibits are clearly the forgotten middle child wandering around the zoo without their parents in Planet Zoo. Habitat animals get held up to a podium, of course. I mean, they work great in the game. And with Aviary and Aquatics coming to Planet Zoo 2 as well, they're the brand new shiny toy everyone wants to play with. But in the middle, we have these small frogs, bugs, and snails that don't necessarily do much. For Planet Zoo 2, we've seen so many wonderful new updates to the pathing system, so many new building tools to make your parks look great. And beyond zoos, we get a peek into what the wildlife preserves might have in store for us players too. All these great things like incredible new animals, updates to guests and keepers. However, there is one system in the game that I am very sad that is noticeably lacking: the exhibit animal system. And all we know is that the axolotl is being included in the deluxe edition, and the image they provided doesn't really have anything to show any updates to the existing exhibit system. Hi y'all, my name is Leaf, and I wanted to talk a little bit about exhibit animals, the kind of forgotten function in Planet Zoo. I wanted to talk about what we can expect to come of this system in Planet Zoo 2, and realistically, what might actually happen. Now, exhibits in Planet Zoo 1 seemingly are kind of just money makers, there's no doubt in that, especially with one of the latest updates in Planet Zoo 1 that allowed us to kind of automatically sell animals as they were bred. It's clear that this system works to essentially give your pockets a little bit more spare change. Now, we do have some incredible animals in the exhibit system, like iguanas, snakes, frogs. Not to mention, we also have the walkthrough exhibit species like the flying foxes, bats, and butterflies. What is so interesting though is that in an interview with one of the developers of Planet Zoo 2, they mentioned that the aviary system that we're getting for habitat animals altogether might work well for butterflies and flying foxes. So they might be migrating out of the exhibit box, the walkthrough exhibit box, and into our aviaries. So what's left for the critters like the Titan beetle, the giant tiger land snail, and the diamondback terrapin? Well, it's clear that this exhibit system has had its flaws all throughout Planet Zoo's life cycle. I would love to see some small improvements made to the exhibit system, understanding that we can't really get an entirely new system altogether. And also, I think I might end up just making my own custom exhibits, but still regardless, let's talk about what I think will actually make these exhibit systems better. Customization is easily one of the most important factors in Planet Zoo, and while I would always advocate for giving the every player the chance to make something quick that also looks good, I also think that if a player wants to get a little bit more down with the details, they should have the option to do so. Knoll roofs, walls, and floors would be the best option for exhibit boxes in my opinion. This would essentially allow the exhibit system to be even more flexible than it typically is by not only allowing yourself to have exhibits that might be cut off in the middle. You could combine these with other larger exhibit boxes to make a giant exhibit kind of habitat essentially. Being able to take the roof off will allow you to do something kind of like a false floor where you can walk over an exhibit, and no walls could allow you to actually do your own custom windows instead of being stuck with the same basic Planet Zoo ones. I do think that we should have the option to do this, and if you do choose to make a wall kind of null, it should essentially set a flag that would kick the exhibit animal off of there. It would kind of push it to the ground or something like that. However, it is no surprise that people think that the exhibit boxes are way too big, so obviously I would love to advocate for sizes and population changes. 1 meter by 1 meter, 1 meter by 2 meter, 2 meter by 2 meter, etc, etc. The smaller they are, the less animals that they can house in them. That is my idea for this. Now keep in mind, each exhibit box is kind of custom modeled. If you look at all the varieties of exhibit boxes that we have in Planet Zoo, there's only a couple that kind of match the same vibe as one another. A lot of these differ from one to the next. So if we start adding in different exhibit box sizes in here, say 1 meter by 1 meter, 1 meter by 2 meter, and then the classic 4 meter by 4 meter, that is 3 times the amount of exhibit box kind of backgrounds that the Planet Zoo devs will have to design. So I really hope that there's a little bit more of like a middle ground that we can have with these, because I would love to have smaller, more realistic exhibit boxes. I think the large ones are very cool. But most of the time, whenever you're at a zoo, the terrariums in this case, or the exhibit boxes, what they're trying to mimic, they're a lot smaller. In fact, they are tiny. They are very tiny. These insects, these kind of reptiles, they don't necessarily need the most amount of space, so having something like this would be just incredible. Up next, I have even more quote-unquote enrichment items. Enrichment is typically reserved for larger species in Planet Zoo, but even the small critters need them too. You know those little things that you can trigger on and off that puts like a branch in there or like a heat lamp? I would love the option to trigger on even more of those. I would love the option to kind of mix and match to my heart's content. If there's even like 20 or 30 different ones in there, just figuring out what combination would work best for this system, because I don't necessarily see us being able to place everything by hand, because that's typically how the habitat system works, and now the aquarium system, I guess. I don't necessarily care if there's overlap, I don't necessarily care if pieces kind of clip over each other. I would just love the option to do more with it, and honestly, I think that is super important for this system, especially when it comes to variety. And yes, that's our next section in here. Every animal, as we've kind of established before, has the exact same terrarium layout no matter what. Sure, you can flip them on their sides, you can twist them around 90 degrees, but I would love the chance to have just slightly different variants of each exhibit type, say for example the Gila monster. For example, I would love to see 3 different variants in there for all 3 different kinds of desert kind of landscapes. Maybe a little bit more of a cliffside, maybe a rocky outcrop in the middle of a sandy desert, and maybe something that is just a little bit more basic, a little bit more zoo that we could kind of decorate ourselves. Again, all 4 of these points is a lot, and I personally don't really see Planet Zoo 2 delivering on all of these, and to be honest, I completely get it. The devs are completely human. Believe me, I've seen them. I'm sorry, I gotta flex that anytime I can. Oh my god. But the exhibit system is something that I really care deeply about. It's something that I always felt badly that was kind of just ignored in Planet Zoo 1. Meanwhile, they're really some of my favorite things in real life. I love seeing small terrariums in real life. Vivariums, terrariums, anything like that. Paludariums. To me, there's just so much more craftsmanship in doing more with less, in terms of less space. I think it's clear if anyone has been around my channel a lot, they understand that I like to make smaller habitats for smaller animals. And I typically don't really like to mess with big hoof stock like elephants, giraffes, and stuff like that. I really do find so much peace in making terrariums, in making smaller exhibits, because that to me is something that is so much more accessible to my mind, if that makes sense. If you guys follow anyone like Tanks for Less or Serpa Designs, I love seeing what they're able to do in real life with these kinds of exhibits, and I kind of want to do the same thing in Planet Zoo, except we don't really have the pieces to do that. But in Planet Zoo 2, this is something I did want to bring up, is the fact that wildlife preserves have the option to integrate exhibit species in here if the developers want to follow through with it. See, yes, while it might be a little bit weird seeing an exhibit box in the middle of a sprawling African savanna or a dense tropical jungle, with the additions that I talked about here just before with the no walls, roofs, and everything like that, we could almost see these seemingly blend into environments. Pending you don't mess with, say, like a 5-meter radius around these so you don't expose everything that's in this system. I would love to see some taped off areas where no people or animals can go. Then, as your zoo continues to work on the conservation and repopulation of this species in franchise mode, you could set to release these to these specific already pointed out areas in the ecosystem. Then when you load back into this wildlife preserve, you could see them kind of thriving in the wild. I think that would be so fun. My local zoo, the Roger Williams Park Zoo, works very closely with our state insect, the American burying beetle, a very endangered species of beetle, and they actually have rewilding projects over here on Block Island. I just think that is so cool, and I would love to see something very much like that. Because yes, while habitat animal conservation, like the white-tailed eagle, or the African lion, or the Maasai giraffe, yes, while that is something that is so important, and while that would really shine in terms of showing off just what conservation is, I think Planet Zoo has the incredible opportunity here to teach about these smaller conservation acts. After all, all, insects are kind of like the base of the food system, of the food chain and stuff like that, so being able to educate people who are coming into this game who want to learn about exhibit animal repopulations and stuff like that, I think this would be such a wonderful opportunity. Even recently, when I was able to go to the London Zoo, they had an entire exhibit dedicated to the Partula snails. They have one of the largest kind of Partula snail cultures in the world, and it is so cool to see all of them just constantly being bred for rewilding at the London Zoo. It makes me so happy that we have institutions out there who really do care, and I think that opportunity for people to do that in Planet Zoo 2 could inspire future biologists, future kind of like insectologists, herpetologists, whatever you want to say. But I am so curious to hear what you all have to say. I know the exhibit system is oftentimes forgotten, and I just wanted to give it a little bit more love today and just talk about what I would love to see out of it personally. And I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic in terms of how much effort Frontier would put into this system, because I could honestly see them still being forgotten, even if they do have a lot of cool features added to them. But I'm curious as to what you all have to say. Yeah, have the most wonderful of wonderful days, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye.